And good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Most Important Conversations Meditations. We record these meditations each morning, Monday through Friday, and the main theme of our meditations is liberation. That is specifically liberating yourself from your learned conditioning, the conditioning that you learned when you were young about who you're supposed to be, why you're supposed to be, and what you're supposed to do. And each morning before our meditations, we begin with a short talk, and the talks are derived from our main ontological liberation and transformational program called Whole Life Architecture. Whole Life Architecture is a live interactive workshop where the participants are learning to create a life by design, by re-architecting all of the four elements that constitute what it means to be human: the cognitive architecture, the emotional architecture, the sensual architecture, and the spiritual architecture. And by re-architecting these areas from a place of intentionality connected to your authentic self as creator, as opposed to merely living a life that is based upon the foundation of your conditioning, you are creating a life by design as opposed to merely tolerating a life by default. We've been speaking about creativity for the last month and a bit, since creativity is the essence of what it means to be human. And in particular, we started yesterday speaking about the role of spontaneity in the creative process. I first want to say, for those who were listening yesterday or were maybe joining us live, when we streamed this, we had a glitch with the streaming that ended it abruptly. And anyway, we've figured that out. It was just an issue with Zoom that we've been able to rectify. So what we were talking about yesterday was the beginning of a series of shares that I'll be doing on spontaneity as its and its relationship to the creative process. And spontaneity is something that we are simultaneously attracted to. We come alive when things that are spontaneous happen to us, particularly when they're new and maybe we see it as fortuitous or unique. We certainly don't love spontaneous things that happen that are detrimental to us. So spontaneity in and of itself is not something that may always work in our favor in terms of what we may want in the moment, but spontaneity is what life is all about, because life is truly spontaneous. It's a myth that we have any kind of control and any kind of real ability to affect how life shows up. For all our planning, for all our strategizing, for all of our goal setting, rarely does it actually occur. And if so, it's mostly by chance, but rarely does it occur as we had planned it. So life is, by its very nature, spontaneous. It's only our perception that life is not spontaneous and that life is orchestrated and goes according to plan. And that's the importance of setting goals. It's only that belief that has us believe that spontaneity isn't the natural order of things. In fact, we even relate to the word spontaneous as though it's an exception to the rule, as though we had all of this well thought out plan and strategy ahead of us. And oh, look at that. That wasn't planned. That was spontaneous. That just happened out of nowhere. And it occurs to us as though spontaneity is this thing that is a little to the side of the apparent order of our life. But when you consider that all of the structures that we put in place in our life to create some sense of predictability, that we are doing it in the midst of spontaneity. In fact, I would say that the very fact that we feel we need to have plans and strategies and have order is because the natural world is anything but strategic and orderly and planned. It is all spontaneity. So our planning is actually an attempt to wrestle spontaneity down, to bring it under our will, to use our willpower and to try to control it. That the only thing that is actually in life when we truly embrace it is the spontaneous, is the unknown, is the anything is possible. And so spontaneity, unlike the way we typically relate to it as though it's an exception to the rule of how life is, on the contrary, our planning is the exception to the rule. There's this old law we're all familiar with called Murphy's Law. And it's been misconstrued, where the interpretation of Murphy's Law is that anything bad that can happen will. That's actually not Murphy's Law. That's what it's been relegated to. But Murphy's Law actually says anything that can happen will happen. However you relate to it. You could relate to it as a positive or negative. Something good happened or bad happened by your definition. Anything that can happen will happen. And so Murphy's Law is really, in its authentic expression, speaking to spontaneity. Anything that can happen will happen, despite your calculated planning, despite your careful strategy, despite all your goal setting, despite all your wishful thinking, your hope. Whatever can happen will happen. So a different way of living life, instead of being overly obsessed with trying to control and plan for everything, is instead of looking to the world without, where you're trying to control, to look at the world within, which is yourself. How are you in the ebbs and flows of spontaneity, which is the natural order of things, the anything that can happen will happen order of things? Put aside your goal setting, your plans, your strategy, all of these things. And if anything that could happen will happen, are you able to respond to it? Or are you just a unconscious, habituated walking emotion to it? A reaction? As you work on yourself, as you turn your gaze inward and start to get curious about your true ability to respond versus to react, you might find that for all your planning and strategy, you're woefully inept to be able to be a response to the spontaneous emergence of life. Can you remain committed? As we teach in whole life architecture, can you remain committed but unattached? That is, committed to what you're committed to, but unattached about how it proceeds and whether it even proceeds in the first place, despite your commitment. How many times have we been committed to things in our life, and despite our commitment, they don't turn out the way we had thought or hoped or planned or strategized, even though we were committed? We say something has to happen. Says who? Says who? Anything that can happen will happen, including that which you don't want to happen. So nothing has to happen. What will happen will happen. In Buddhism, this is called being with the isness of things. Things just are, despite your judgment, despite your labels, despite your attempts to control. Whatever will happen will happen. Whatever can happen will happen. Spontaneity is the order of life. And so rather than us spending our time and energy trying to wrestle spontaneity to the ground with our planning by, as I reference it, changing the furniture, the external furniture of our life and just rearranging it, rather than wasting our life force energy doing these kinds of activities, we'd be much better off to strengthen our inner world, our inner ability to move gracefully with the flow of the unknown, with the spontaneous, and enter into a state that the Japanese refer to as wabi-sabi, which is the perfectness in the brokenness. The brokenness being the unpredictability of life, the inability to contain it, to control it, to make it perfect according to our will, but rather the ability to flow perfectly in the imperfectness based on our perception. The imperfectness of how life unfolds, not according to our plans. Can we work on ourselves to gracefully flow with that and to experience that state of the ability to respond no matter what comes your way? This is how you be with spontaneity. You be with it by learning how to move with it. It's no different than the spontaneity if you were going down a whitewater river raft, the spontaneity of a wave or a rock or something just emerging unplanned, out of sight, and your ability to maneuver gracefully and flow this way and that way, and to adjust course accordingly. Our life is actually more like rafting down a raging river than it is just sitting still, because we've got everything so calculated and planned, but it just doesn't work out that way. How many people had plans before COVID? How many companies promised their investors how much money they were going to make in 2021? Uh-oh, the river took a turn. Spontaneity, the actual state of reality, cracked our plans wide open. Spontaneity said, "Hold my drink." Or so the poem goes, the best laid plans of mice and men. So the invitation this morning is to consider how much planning, careful goal setting, stress and anxiety you experience by trying to willfully pin down your reality and bring it under your will. How much life force energy are you expending trying to control the uncontrollable versus your ability to flow, committed and unattached with the reality that is an uncontrollable world, including your life and everything and everyone in it. We should never be surprised. We're only surprised by life when we think we understand it, when we think it's fixed, when we think it's within our control. You will never be surprised by anything if you embraced spontaneity. And with spontaneity, our creativity comes online. Because suddenly, when we embrace the reality of spontaneity as the state of life, the state of existence, when we embrace that, suddenly we find our creativity coming online, because that's what's required to maneuver and to pivot and to adjust gracefully, to flow down the river of a spontaneous life. It is creativity, the unknown, the ability to be with the unknown, and to create in the midst of no thing. Something new emerges. There's no plan. There's no strategy what to do. Have to get creative. You can't rely on the left brain. Your logical mind is of no use in the true nature of reality. It's really only good for developing habits around your own way of being, for your inner world. But when we try to apply left brain thinking to the uncontrollability of the external world, we are constantly disappointed. For all our planning, it never seems to work out exactly as we had planned, or in the time we had planned, or within the budget we had planned, or with the people we had planned to experience it with. Life, in its truest sense, is spontaneous. The only question is, are you able to flow with it? Or are you going to be so resistant to it that instead of being able to bend gracefully, you break? So I'd invite you to think about that as we move into our watcher-observer meditation this morning. In the back of your mind, as you're seated in a comfortable position, have in the back of your mind this question. Don't obsess about it or think about it too much this morning. Just have it there softly, a little to the side in your awareness. How much are you losing yourself by trying to control everything? How much stress are you experiencing by trying to control everything? How resistant are you to the unknown in your own life? Can you, perhaps even in one area, begin to loosen up? Try something new. Don't be so fixed. As you're seated, take a few deep cleansing breaths and just let this simmer in the back of your mind. As we move into our watcher-observer meditation, we are practicing watching our thoughts, observing our emotions, not chasing them, not ruminating on them. We're practicing allowing the emptiness of our mind to be a preferred state, so that we can start to observe as we go about our day the goings-on of a world obsessed with control and planning, and we don't have to fall into the trap. We get to observe and to watch. We get to participate if we choose, but we do it from a committed but unattached place because we are an observer to the spontaneity of life rather than someone who is hell-bent on controlling every little aspect. We are learning to flow. If you consider a watcher or an observer of a sports game, they have no control over the trajectory of the game. And so it's entertainment for them. Their participation is a little to the side. They're able to respond because they're not of the game. They're not immersed in it. And this is the power of being a watcher-observer as you go about your day and your life. It doesn't mean you aren't doing things. You're getting things done. You're attending to your responsibilities. But you're doing it from a loose place, a watcher-observer place. You're not attached. You're not attached to how it's supposed to go, the time frame it's supposed to take, how it's supposed to occur. You're committed. You do the best job possible, but you're unattached to the narrative and the story that is all societal conditioning. So take a few deep breaths And as your thoughts move in and out of your awareness during our time together, allow them to drift through your awareness as though they're merely clouds in the sky, drifting in and out of your awareness. If you find yourself attaching to a thought, you might name it planning, thank you, anxiety, worry, thank you, excitedness, joy, thank you, let it go. And get back to that spaciousness. Perhaps some emotions will arise, like waves on the ocean. A thought emerges, an emotion follows. Feel the emotion, don't repress it. Allow it to rise and fall. In the roughly 90 seconds neuroscientists tell us it takes for an emotion to rise and fall out of our awareness. Don't chase it with a story. Don't get trapped in it. Don't ruminate it. Don't keep the story of the emotion alive. Just let it be felt and let it dissipate. So for the next few minutes, that's what we'll be doing together, watching and observing our thoughts and emotions. A little to the side, invite your subconscious to ask yourself the question, are you able to loosen up, learning to bend so you don't break, with the natural, spontaneous order of all of life? And I'll see you all in a few minutes. And welcome back, everybody. Reconnecting to the world without from the world within. Reconnecting to the day that you have ahead of you with all of the responsibilities, the accountabilities, the meetings, the calls. And the invitation this morning is to see if you can keep this spaciousness that you're feeling right now as you move out in the world, but don't become part of it. Take care of what you need to take care of. But see if you can just be a little looser with your rigidity, your planning, your goals. See if you can be open to something new that wants to come through, but that your attachment to how it should go blocks, so you never see it. Maybe it's better than what you had planned. See if you can flow. I'd like to wish all of you a wonderful day, and we will continue our Watcher Observer meditation